Joining us. We've got two really busy people with us today, so I want to go ahead and get rolling. Thanks for joining us for our very first Friday forum. As you all know, many of you all on the call know that we switched up our call format this week, and it's been great hearing from the rest of our team. But I am back and looking forward to talking to a couple of really great gentlemen this afternoon to hear some things on the government side and on the banking side. As we go into the weekend, a beautiful weekend. It looks like, if we can judge by today's weather, I think there are a lot of folks out there enjoying today's weather. And so those who can't join us will be recording this and getting it out to them as well. So the other thing is, I want you to, if you're not already, follow us on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, on @GSO Chamber for the latest information, again, @GSO Chamber. And then again, a reminder that if you've missed any of our calls this week, all the links to the resources and all those recordings are on our website. That's greensboro.org/COVID-19, greensboro.org/COVID-19. Another big reminder, please fill out your census forms while you're at home. An accurate count means extra funding for our community and the representation that we deserve at the federal level. We're going to need that as we come out the other side of this, so please do that. Our friends at Downtown Greensboro have started a fundraiser. They're partnering with downtown restaurants to provide meals for healthcare workers at Cone Health. We'll put that link in the chat. It's on our social media. It'll be in our post-call email. It's a great way to give back both to our local small businesses and to the workers on the front line. So if you haven't contributed, please do so. Another great announcement, and we'll have more about this next week. We are still continuing to plan and work on our Impact Leadership Conference. You'll remember that last year we talked about this. We've been really working hard on a new leadership conference. We've set a date, October 15th, 2020. Of course, in the midst of this, we don't quite know what that will look like yet. We're working on a plan A, a plan B, a plan C to bring that to you, depending on what we look like in the fall as a country. But please do this. Mark next Friday at 3 p.m. on your calendar. You won't want to miss it. On that next Friday forum, we will have our keynote speaker for Impact. So the keynote, the real big speaker for Impact that will be held on October 15th will be joining us on our Friday forum. I can't quite tell you that name yet. We'll let you know on Monday. But they're going to be able to join in and call us. That's really excited. So check your email and your social media on Monday for that reveal of who that's going to be. And so as we dive into this, I wanted to bring on our chairman of our county commissioner, Jeff Phillips. He's represented District 5 in Guilford County since 2012 and has absolutely been an integral part of our community's response to COVID-19. And I wanted to bring him in. Jeff, I've just unmuted you. Give us a word. Make sure that we can hear you. Are you with us?
I'm with you, sir. Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being willing to join us. And I know you all had a commission meeting last night, so thanks for the quick turnaround. And I know you've got an awful lot going, so thanks for being willing to give us 10 or 15 minutes today.
Absolutely.
As we talk about COVID-19. So let me start off, and the first off, also, there's an opportunity for those of you all who are on the call or on Zoom to give us some questions on the Zoom group chat, or if you're on a call and you have access to a computer or an opportunity to get to us on Twitter, you can tweet at us and give us a question if you've got something for Jeff. So, Jeff, I would say as we're looking back over the past few weeks, tell us how this experience has been for you in this county leadership position.
Well, Brent, it's been challenging would be an understatement.
Yeah,
it's unlike anything in my I guess short political career, which is going on 8 years at the end of this one. So I just I remember thinking back late last fall that I'd like to ask our board to support me for the chair, which is my third time as a chairman of our board in my 8 year what will be 8 year tenure. and of course they were very supportive, thankfully, and there were several things I wanted to be a part of helping to kind of button up and finish strong with regard to various projects and initiatives that have been underway. So, they gave me that honor, blessed me in that regard. And of course, I thought to myself, pretty much seen most everything over the past 7 years that I could have imagined. I mean, it's not always the same in, repeat fashion, but there's some similar processes we go through each and every year that I'm, intimately familiar with. Never could I have anticipated, come late February for our area, the experience that we've all been living through, the challenges we've all been living through with COVID-19 and the risks that it, brought right here into our collective communities of Guilford County. So challenging, I think, on another hand, to, finish the answer to your question. Also encouraging, to have both mayors, for example, come together with county leadership and their staffs as well. I should say both mayors of the two largest cities in the county. For the three of us to come together in unison a few weeks back, and while we didn't agree on every point, we agreed to move forward together. And anybody that was paying attention saw that we were unified in our decision to implement a stay-at-home order. We here in Guilford, we got ahead of the governor. We weren't sure what he was going to do, when he was going to do it, what that might look like, and didn't feel like, given some of the experiences we were seeing, that we could wait for him. And so that was encouraging, and continues to be the case to this day, even though last night, as most of us are aware that have been paying attention, our local order expired. We, however, remain, while again, I said it last night in some comments, not everyone necessarily agreed, but we're together, and, we're going to get through this together. We're going to be stronger together on the other side of it. But it's been, very painful in the process, and particularly, I would imagine some of the businesses that are on the call or represented on the call today have been feeling, the financial strains, both maybe personally and certainly on the, with their businesses as well. So we're very sensitive to all of those variables and factors as we kind of take. I used to say, one day at a time. Literally, it's right. 1 hour at a time, and sometimes moment by moment, we see information come, and that we've got to be sensitive to. So challenging, and yet encouraging.
It seems like each one of these weeks is a full year, right? So it's just incredible how this time is passing, and something comes at you almost on the hour. And I remember, we talked earlier today, and you said, God willing, I'll be on at 3. But you never know, and things keep coming at us. So let's go back.
Right.
Talk. Go ahead, Jeff.
No, that's it. I'm feel free to ask any follow-up if you like.
Yeah, so let's go back to that stay-at-home order. You all did jump out ahead of the governor, and we had a Guilford County-wide stay-at-home order. The governor did act after that. Talk to us about the decision to go ahead and let the county order expire, and what that means, and making sure that we continue to emphasize that there still is a stay-at-home order. It just happens to be at the state level rather than at the county level. So kind of walk us through that, maybe talk about similarities and differences and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I certainly hit the highlights, and if you want me to drill down in any way, I'll do my best. But okay. But the what happened is really just to kind of reflect. Our stay-at-home order turned out to be more restrictive than the governor's. His came out 2 days later, I think, effective maybe 4 or 5 days after, 2 or 3 days after ours, actually. It was less restrictive. We course, considered all of that, and the elected at the time decided to stay the course, so to speak, with our local restrictions. What happened subsequently, however, is he implemented somewhat more restrictive measures on multiple occasions. Two in particular that I can remember that were more significant in my mind over the last 3 weeks or so now. We, on the other hand, loosened in two different circumstances, loosened some of our restrictions specific to certain business types, et cetera. What we determined really in wrestling through this the last few days is that we weren't really that far apart. Now, there's differing opinion on that, on those points, but in the more significant elements of each of the orders, the gap had narrowed, and we felt like, for the sake of establishing a more uniform order throughout our region, certainly here in Guilford County, that the time was such that we could allow it to expire and still, to your point earlier, with consistent and persistent messaging, remind our citizens they are still under a stay-at-home order by virtue of the governor's executive order, and we're here to answer any questions about the differences and what that means. And I think you alluded to this as well. Primarily, some business types are now permitted to be open or considered to be, quote, essential, where they were not within the more restricted version of the order that is Guilford County's. And so, but with, again, very, I'd say stringent by, comparison to what we're used to, stringent social distancing requirements nonetheless. So, and then to include the maintaining of at least 6 feet distance between individuals, washing hands regularly, that being the employees, regularly cleaning high-touch surfaces, and anywhere you can do business online or remotely, please, that's something, if possible, to continue to do. All of those factors to include, for every, this is by memory, so forgive me if I missed this slightly, but for every 1,000 feet of store space, if it were a retail store, can't have more than 5 people within that space, and includes employees. So everybody's got to be, as I said, respecting the social distancing requirements. So it's not a wide open the way it used to be sort of endeavor to have allowed our order to expire. Still very restrictive parameters and expectations. And again, kind of reflecting back to follow on the comment I made earlier, we've really done a very good job here in Guilford County. Our, evidenced by the positives, even though they've been rising some, and it's uncomfortable to say the least. I promise you, nobody's watching them more closely than I and many others on our team. We're up to 171 positives here in Guilford County, 12 deaths, which all very unfortunate. And I think the sort of reasonable expectation that we'll continue to see some positives come in, but in comparison, if you want to do that, relative, I should say, to other urban, more metropolitan counties across the state of North Carolina, we, in terms of incident rate and positives in terms of numbers, we've been very fortunate thus far. I think the efforts that all of us collectively as citizens across the county have put in some cases suffered through financially and otherwise has contributed, no doubt, to those outcomes. But having said that, as I mentioned, we're not out of the woods yet. We've got frankly a long way to go. This isn't just going to disappear all of a sudden in 2 weeks. I think everybody certainly fully aware of that fact. 2 months even, or several months, and we need to be of the mindset to stay the course. Certainly we want to find every opportunity when we can loosen some of these restrictions, which I think to at least some degree we considered when we allowed our order to expire. But we've just got to continue to be diligent to respect others around us, obviously to protect our own health, the health of our families, our colleagues and friends, and our communities collectively. So
and I know you're continuing to get good counsel, Jeff, from Cone Health and your own health department. Who are the folks that you're getting advice from on a regular basis, and is kind of looking at the health side of these things for you?
Yeah, we're watching Cone Health's numbers very carefully, and of course have been since the outset.
Mm-hmm.
They've been very good about providing data and information to keep us abreast of their numbers. And we looked at frankly a lot of factors along those lines. I touched on them in my comments last night. I've asked our team to get those comments up on our website ASAP so people can go. They weren't able to watch, they're able to go listen. But and I sort of listed several of the factors, if you will, and I'll just I guess repeat a little bit if that's okay. But
yeah,
not only, as you said, from Public Health Department, Cone Health, Wake Forest Baptist Medical out of High Point, all those folks kind of funneling through our Public Health Department, our Emergency Management Service Director, and again collective team. Constantly watching the number of tests that are reported, the number of positive and negative test results, that coming primarily from Cone Health. It's got the most significant numbers here in Guilford County. The availability or accessibility of needed supplies, referred to as PPE. I never heard that before in my life until all this, but that's personal protective equipment that our first responders and or healthcare workers and law enforcement, frankly, in some cases need to have available. There's been a little bit of an issue that nationally we've probably heard, and certainly here in Guilford County, but I think those availability is improving. Masks, obviously, a part of that. But in addition, we've considered a number of, obviously, COVID-19 positives. I mentioned that number earlier as it relates to available hospital bed capacity. Again, early on, there was some concern about capacity issues. Should we have a, sort of worst case scenario surge? And, thank God, on 2 points. One, we, as of yet, at least, that's not happened. And then secondly, it's given some time as a result, additional time to our healthcare providers to establish additional capacity. So it's never a perfect science because they can't know, and we can't know for sure what the future holds. But they've done a great job of I say Cone in particular, I'll refer to, has done a very good job of expanding their bed capacity in the event they need it or that we need it as a community. So and there are a lot of other things Yeah, go ahead.
A great example, I would say, Jeff, of the age-old adage: prepare for the worst and hope for the best, right? And
well, it is.
Part of the hoping for the best is everybody's got to play their role. Yeah,
that's exactly right. Exactly. And I talked about this last night. One of the hardest things to watch from my perspective is throughout all of this is the phone calls, the emails, the text messages, sometimes face to face, but it's so many of our citizens who have been or are enduring hardships of lost jobs and lost wages. You see the national numbers; it's like excess of 20 million people now out of a job. It's unprecedented, frankly, in the time at which this is all unfolded. It's hard to put your mind around that, but if you're experiencing it, you sure as heck know how it feels. The lost wages, even if you haven't lost a job, hours could be cut back. So
that's right.
So many people in our communities are suffering severe financial hardship. And we're deeply concerned about that issue. We cannot, you guys being the Chamber of Commerce and and representing the business community of Greensboro, it is a top priority for us as well to keep our eye on that while we're focusing on the health and safety of our citizens. On those issues economically and the impact, the real and painful in many cases impact that this public health crisis is wielding, on our businesses and business owners, and particularly small businesses that are really the lifeblood of our local and national economy. So
that's right.
So
we appreciate
we're looking at that.
Keeping an eye on that.
Yes, sir. And that played in. Some folks want to kind of, I won't say ignore, that may sound too extreme, but minimize those impacts. And you can't, as I mentioned last night, you just can't make these sort of life altering decisions in a vacuum. You have to look at the big picture. I will always, as a business owner myself, I mean, I know what that looks like. I know what that feels like to wonder where's the revenue coming from, so I can pay my bills next month. That I can cover the expenses for my employees, et cetera. And we just that's a part of my DNA. So, and not to mention the emotional and mental health impact. Some of this we're talking about, whether it's your physical health folks are dealing with, or the fear factor, or financial strain. It's real, and it's created. I mentioned last night the Family Justice Center numbers have spiked. I mean, this is a domestic violence initiative that we started back in 2015. Very, very proud, of the people that do the incredible work there every day, but just what they're doing to help save lives, really. But when you have a stay-at-home order, I won't belabor all this. I know I'm rambling a little bit, but I was talking to Catherine Johnson, who's the director of the center, and she was kind of educating me a couple of weeks ago about, when you have a stay-at-home order and people don't feel, either they're afraid to, or they don't feel like they can get out and do what they normally do, then you open up or create, I guess, potentially opportunity for heightened incidents of domestic violence and sexual assault and elder abuse and substance abuse and even suicide. So those are real byproducts of this public health crisis that cannot, be ignored. So just, big stuff. I mean, back to your first question.
Yeah.
It's heavy. Yeah. And so it's been a challenge, but I'm honored to be in this situation. Not everybody that sees or hears my thoughts or my decision about my decisions is always in agreement, and I get that. But there's one thing, there's one thing I hope people will remember me for through this or anything else I do. I take it very, very seriously. I look at all the information I can possibly gather to come to and feedback and input, and some don't think I'm hearing, but I hear, and it matters. So, and we've got incredible resources at the county, the cities as well. And, it's been a team effort. It's been tough. It's going to be tough going forward. If everybody does their part, continues to do their part, we'll mitigate we'll mitigate the impact, or we'll do way better than some areas, North Carolina and across the country, and as I said earlier, we'll come out stronger for it. I mean, we are Guilford strong, and
that's right.
And
that's right.
I would say this is where our metal's tested right here.
I would say, Jeff, the business community and especially the chamber is here to help in any way we can, especially as we start to plan on how we turn things back on. We all know it won't be a light switch that goes on right away, but it'll be more like a dimmer switch that it comes on bit by bit.
That's right.
We're here to help in any way that we can as well. So keep that in mind.
That.
You got an awful lot of resources and like you said, an awful lot of business owners and managers are on the line with us. They're willing to help because they're ready to go as soon as we get that clearance to go, and as soon as our medical professionals tell us that the coast is clear.
Absolutely.
As you said, your stay-at-home order didn't expire, and it's not safe for everybody to go to restaurants and and go to the Tanger Center and that sort of thing. That's going to take a little bit, but I know you're going to be very vigilant as you move forward.
Absolutely. And I really, for whoever's listening, just, thank you for all you have done, your teams have done, kind of good, bad, and ugly, through all this. I mean, there's been some real suffering, as I mentioned, but, just some amazing things happening across our, all of our communities as well. That, just this, I mean, I'll leave you with this thought. This morning, I was a good pastor friend of mine, Julius Kuntz. His wife is, I didn't even know her title. I knew she was a nurse with our public health department, but she's actually like the CDC, the Community for Disease Control head nurse for public health department. And he called me earlier in the week. He said, Jeff, I want to do a drive-by. I got a group of folks in my church and out in the community that want to do a drive-by thank you for the public health department employees and nurses. And he said, I'd really love for you to come do that with us. Now, I didn't know what that meant, but nobody knew about it. His own wife didn't even know about it. So we had, I think it was about 20 cars this morning with balloons and pom-poms and, honking and carrying on and had Dr. Van, who's our public health director, bring all of them out at the right time.
That's awesome.
And we drove through the parking lot. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Frankly, makes me a little emotional to think about it, but tears and great joy for, just spending a little time appreciating the incredible work they're doing. So, that's awesome. That's just a tiny example, I guess, huge, massive in this, in another way, but a small example of what we can all do to really contribute. There are a lot
of unsung heroes. You get to be the face of the response at the county level, but we all know there are an awful lot of unsung heroes in this process.
Absolutely.
Well, Jeff, thank you for your time. I know you're busy. Thank you for spending a little time with us. We need to move on to our next phase and get David Edwards plugged in here. But again, thanks so much for everything that you're doing. And know that we're here for you when you need us.
Yeah. Thank you, Brent. Thank you, David. And thanks to all the chamber team, and God bless you all. Have a good weekend.
God bless you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Jeff. Let me transition a little bit here while we go away from Jeff. I'm gonna bring David in here. See if I can find him on my screen, or maybe David Ramsey, you can find him for me. Let's see. Do you have him on, David?
I'll get him, Brent.
Okay. All right. There he is. I see him at the bottom there. David Edwards is the regional president for the Piedmont region for First National Bank. He's got more than 20 years of experience in commercial banking and is a graduate of App State University. Let me unmute him here. David, can you hear us? Are you with us?
I am. Thank you for letting me come on today, and I appreciate Jeff, all his efforts. I would like to say a big thank you to him and all his leadership through this process too.
He's done a very nice job of making sure that our community stays safe and is approaching this in a very logical manner. So we appreciate that. So David, I brought you on today, and I think it's fortuitous that you agreed that you'd do it because we were starting to see some concerns in the small business area. Around the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, and lo and behold, yesterday all the headlines jumped off the page about PPP running out of money and all of the challenges that we've had around the small business administration and their response to COVID-19 and the funds that are available to small businesses out there. And I didn't want everybody to go into the weekend without at least getting some thought as to where we stand from your standpoint on small business relief, what you're seeing out there, what you expect going forward, and just kind of give us a lay of the land, if you would, David, from your standpoint on these past few weeks and the response from the federal government to the plight of small businesses during COVID-19.
Yeah, absolutely, Brent. And I know that's been a major headline topic on really any news media outlet. Affects so many people. I would also like to take a moment just to say thank you to you and your team. I think the communication leadership that the chamber has exhibited throughout this cycle, and I know will continue, is just a strong testament to how well we come together as a community, and just gives me absolute confidence that we're going to come out of this on the other side very strong as well. As far as the PPP program, which for anyone who doesn't know is the Paycheck Protection Program, it's really been administered through the Small Business Administration, and as some of the local decisions that Jeff and his fellow counterparts have made throughout our local community and the state, it was really an effort of Congress coming together in somewhat of a unified fashion to support small businesses, which I think in years past and in crisis past maybe didn't get as much attention. So it was very pleasing as a banker to work with small businesses, which are the fabric of our communities every day, and see that they're being recognized, that we need to also provide some direct assistance to them immediately. And so that was very rewarding. Listening to Jeff and yourself have the discussion, the two words describing the last few weeks of events, I think is the same with even the PPP program. And that is that, one, is challenging. I think it was challenging for our small businesses to digest the information. It's definitely drinking out of a fire hose for many days there, and for bankers to digest the guidelines. And just to put some perspective, in 14 days, the SBA has lent through this program more than they have lent in 14 years. And that will register, $350 billion in 14 days is just amazing. The government approved it with good intentions, and then we had to figure out how to get it out to the system, to the community. And I know that's flowing. Many of our clients have received approvals and funds the same day. I know that's across the board within the industry. And so it's just very rewarding to see that come together so quickly, which, has taken a lot of man hours by many, many officials and people within industries and advisors and so forth. So that part is working well. And, I would say, I've read a lot of articles, there's some best practices, tips. I think one of the questions that come up now is, the program was designed for this short term. So if I get my approval, when do I get the monies, and how do I get forgiveness? Those questions kind of come to the forefront, and I'll state the broad parameters and welcome any questions, but at least 75% of the proceeds need to go towards payroll expenses,
right,
covering the 8-week period from the time that a company gets the money funded that day for the 8 weeks forward, and the other 25% can go towards other utilities, overhead expenses, rents, mortgage interest, and the like. And that is for the forgiveness rule. And of course, there is an option I don't think many people are wanting to pursue, but it can convert into a loan over 2 years as well at a 1% interest rate. So, so there's definitely some flexibility there.
David, what percentage have you seen of your applications at First National that have been approved to this point versus those who haven't been approved at this point, with SBA kind of putting the brakes on it for now?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Brent. I would step back from it and say, our bank has had over 17,000 applications.
Wow.
Now that covers our entire footprint. I don't have an exact percentage on the approval rate of the total that's been applied, but I would tell you, I continue to be impressed with the clients that are applying, both we've had clients and prospects that have applied to us that are very prepared, very thorough, and really have helped the bankers work through the process by providing the necessary information for verification. And there's some checklists on our website. I'd be glad to run through any of that information for anybody that has any specific questions. But I would say a very high percentage rate of approvals. We're really looking for, and I would say the industry is looking for verification of information, more of an operational approval than it is a credit approval. So following the requirements of what the SBA lays out in their applications as to what to provide, which is really just the proof of their payroll, average monthly payroll for the last 12 months or the full year 2019, either is acceptable. If those items are met, then it's a very high percentage that get approved.
Good. We've got a couple of questions here, David. I'll just, you can probably see them as well. Cindy's question, if our PPP loan has been approved, should I be worried about the funding which has not been received? Do the banks already have the money from the government? Is there a delay there in terms of approval and then the money being in the account?
Yeah, that's another very tremendous question. I don't think the media describes this very well, but what happens in the process, if an applicant goes to their bank, they apply, the bank then does the cursory review of the necessary information, and then the banks go to the SBA. There's a system called E-Tran, and this happens with any SBA loan regardless of PPP, but when the E-Tran is submitted, then the SBA gives a automated account number and a approval of a loan amount that to be funded up to a specific dollar. And so when you're hearing media reports as to all the money has been exhausted, but maybe an applicant hasn't got their funds yet, the difference is the SBA giving that initial funding approval to the bank is called a PLP, pre-authorization number and amount. And from that time, you'll hear a lot of information in the media as well that there's a 10-day rule that from the time that's approved through that E-Tran system that banks have to disperse those funds. And so that's a major issue I think banks are working through. I know we are on our end this week and through the weekend to ensure that those funds go out to clients on time. So from that standpoint, the bank approval fully to get the funds out is more operational after they get that approval from the SBA on the authorization.
Gotcha. So if I'm reading this right, if you've gotten an authorization number, you've gotten that number, those funds should be in your account within 10 days.
Absolutely. That's correct.
Okay. Michael Borg says that from the requirements listed, our business qualified for PPP, applied very early in the process, but didn't receive any notification that the application was even received. What recourse do they have at this point? I mean, you're going through a bank to make these applications, so it's not like you call the SBA and say, "What about my application?" I guess the recourse is you gotta talk to the bank that you're applying through. Correct?
Absolutely, I would say so. I know every bank has a little different process on that. We have a web portal online. We did some offline applications early until we got that built, but we do, and I'm sure other institutions as well have tracking processes for any applications received. And so I would encourage you to go back to that bank you applied for and get a update as to that application.
I've heard some stories, and of course there's always horror stories, and there's always some really good stories. I've also heard some stories that some businesses have applied for this program through multiple lenders. Same application, multiple lenders, that may be causing some confusion out there in the marketplace. Have you seen any instances where multiple applications through different lending organizations have caused some issues?
We have, Brent, and that's I know that there was maybe not the best choice of words, panic in the marketplace early that that even advisors were encouraging clients to apply to as many banks as possible, get the first one that gets approved, and then to cancel the others. And you can withdraw an application, so I'm glad that has come about. But I really discouraged our bankers from, to encourage our clients not to do that and to try to discourage that action. There's an obvious reason. Going back to the system, we all deal in this heightened electronic identification fraud issues that's out there, and all the phishing attempts. And so you've got a government agency that's fully automated issuing these approvals. And if they see duplicate tax ID numbers coming in asking for the same money, it's going to flag that. And so we've had it flagged within our internal system and been able to back those out for duplicates. So I think ultimately it'll be okay, but it may actually work against you and probably put you more at the back of the list if you went that route. But
Gotcha. So in hopes of making sure that you got it, you could have unintentionally put yourself at the back of the line because they don't know quite how to handle those multiple
exactly.
applications. Understood. Another good question here about will the loan recipients receive the funding in increments like a construction loan, or do you see do they come all? Does it come all at once? If I apply for $250,000, do I get $250,000 all at once?
No, it's a fully funded loan.
Gotcha.
Front. So yes.
Gotcha. And the idea is, and I know you've been working with your clients. I've been talking to other banks. There was a rush at the beginning to get applications in. A lot of my banker friends who have been saying, yes, there was a rush, but we wanted to make sure that we took our time because we want to make sure that our clients, these loans are going to be forgiven at the end of the day. We don't want there to be a surprise at the end of the road when, we're 2 or 3 months in and the government comes back and says, you don't qualify for these to be forgiven or a portion of these to be forgiven. So now we're converting you to a loan. So I'm assuming as you went through this, some of that time at the banker level was taken to advise your clients on exactly how to do this.
Absolutely, Brent. That's an excellent question. I had wrote down a note to make this point. I would say if you have been fortunate enough to be approved or even have received the funds through the PPP program, and you are looking for forgiveness, which most are, I would encourage you to potentially even set up a separate account to run all the funds through, so you've got just very accurate accounting records. And again, it's the test, as I understand them, are that you maintain your payroll levels, and that you have 8 weeks to from the time you get the funding to use at least 75% of the money towards payroll expenses. So the way we are verifying these are the tax records, the 941s, the various, you can include some health benefits and other expenses that's related to payroll. So having very good, accurate data and reporting will help on the backside of that if you're looking for forgiveness. And I would just say, we've got so many just wonderful CPA and tax advisor, and payroll providers in our community, and they have just been excellent through this process. Legal firms as well, providing proper guidance, and frankly, it's made the banker's job a lot easier. So a tremendous shout out to all those organizations in our community.
Good. Do the banks have to play a role in checking that data after 8 weeks, or are the banks the ones that are having to police that, or is the SBA going to be the one that polices that? How are you all going to play a role going forward?
That's a good question, and frankly, all the proper guidance has not been laid out for the banks on that yet, but my understanding is the banks will be we are holding the loan. So I think it goes back to a
Right.
question that was asked earlier, was how does the funds actually transaction? The banks issue those loans. And so it goes from the
Right.
bank. We exchange, go through the process over the next 8 weeks to a couple months until a borrower would potentially come back to the bank and say, I want my loan forgiven. Here's my documentation to prove that. And the banks will follow the guidelines that the government sets forth and submit that just like we're doing on the front end for approval to request the forgiveness. Now, we don't have all the specific guidelines yet, but it will be through your bank to collect the data back from a client and then submit to the SBA for the forgiveness at the end of that period.
Gotcha. So we're still waiting on that. We've made this analogy a number of times over the past few weeks. We're building the airplane while we're flying it, and it has to stay in the air.
That's a very accurate statement. Very accurate statement. I would say this because it does kind of lead into another question that may be in the list. Obviously, yesterday around 10:30, I don't have the exact time, maybe 10:16. The funding level reached its capacity with the government, and it cut off the opportunity to apply for additional PLP authorizations. I would say, there's a lot of dialogue. Will there be expansions to the program? That literally will have to take an act of Congress, but there's a lot of strong indications that may happen. The positive I would take away from that is 3 weeks ago, we didn't have any of this information. We didn't have any of this process built within our country. Well, today, those pipes are all in place with the banks on application process, documentation, funding. So if Congress acts and it is reopened or expanded, I think that flow can readily happen very quickly. Good. So I feel very good about the potential for that.
Well, and that's what I want to leave everybody with today, and I want everybody to understand we're watching this very closely. We're in touch with our congressional delegation on a regular basis, and if you all have the ability to talk to them, you should as well. I don't anticipate this being an if Congress appropriates more money. I think it's a win, because I don't think anybody politically cannot put some more money into this program, given the level of interest and need, quite frankly, for it out there to keep businesses open and to keep people employed. I mean, it's a double whammy, right? We don't need businesses closing, and we don't need more people unemployed. And so, just politically, I just don't think they can't not do it. Hate to use a double negative there, but they can't not do it. But the pressure needs to be kept on them to act quickly, because we don't need another huge round of layoffs, and that's, I think, everybody's concern at this point. And so we are advocating, I can tell you that, very actively. Anybody who can needs to be talking to their congressional representation and making sure that they understand how critical it is for them to act quickly. And let's hope that that's Monday. And I think it will be. I think there'll be enough pressure ratcheted up that come Monday, something's going to get done.
Absolutely, Brent. And I think the one thing I would go back to, and maybe kind of to wrap up, unless there's any other questions, glad to answer as many as there are. But the question now is, okay, if I've gotten PLP approval but I don't have my loan, what should I do? You should stay in contact with your banker. They will guide you through the process if there's any missing documentation or refinement needed there, and should within 10 days of that original approval have the funds to you. So probably within a matter of days, if not hours. The second part is, well, what if I've applied, but I haven't been told I've been approved? I haven't gained that PLP approval, or I got in after the funding level got capacity. I would tell you it's the same answer. Stay in touch with your banker. We are working with many clients, many applicants who are in that process, and we are making sure that to your point, if and when that happens, that everything is ready to go, and we can execute very quickly, and there's not delays after that. And so I would just strongly encourage anyone who's applying or interested in applying, be in touch with your banker and make sure you have your accounting payroll records, in place, in hand, ready to go.
Great. Well, David, thank you. I appreciate you being willing to join us. I appreciate the update. You all are doing great work. We cannot thank you enough. We've got folks on the physical health side helping people who have COVID-19. We've got you working on the business health side of things, and all of our banking community as well as our healthcare community are on the front lines of this. And we thank you for being willing to step in and play that role. We can't thank you enough.
Absolutely. Glad to do it.
And like I said, let's make sure we're continuing to let our folks know in Washington, D.C. that we need them to continue to help us along these lines. So that is going to do it for us today. I wanted to leave you all with something that I, quite frankly, found on the internet last night that I think spoke volumes to what some of us and others are going through in this process, and also encourage you all, especially those who have means, to be mindful of what you can do to help others in this process. And I don't even know who authored it, but I just wanted to share it as we went into the weekend. We are all in the same boat, but we are not all in the same storm. For some people, it's sprinkling. This is a break. It's a breather. It's a pause in the normal. It's a time to reconnect with family and slow down. Honestly, it's kind of peaceful. For some, it's a storm. It's a bit scary. It's disruptive. It's enough to make you stay up and watch the news and worry. For some, it's a hurricane. It's tearing at the boards and pulling off the roof. It's washing them out to sea. It's dark and unknown, and it's life-changing. It's not wrong to be enjoying the sprinkles or enduring the storm, but please don't negate the difference. Rest with family, but don't minimize the hurricane engulfing your neighbor. Laugh at a meme, but get on your knees for your friends. Get in someone else's storm. So as we go into this weekend, we appreciate you all and everything that you all do for the community and for our chamber. But I would ask you over the weekend to pause and get in someone else's storm and think about what we can do even further to help this community through this COVID-19 situation, which we know is temporary. It's no less troubling, but it is certainly temporary. And with that, everybody have a great weekend. We'll talk to everybody again on our Motivation Monday, 3:00, same Zoom channel. And so until then, have a wonderful weekend. And we'll see you again on Monday. Thanks for being with us. Take care.